Christmas, a time of joy, reflection, and celebration, has been observed for centuries as the commemoration of the birth of Jesus Christ. For Christians, it marks the arrival of the Son of God on earth, fulfilling prophecies of salvation and hope. The name Christmas itself originates from the phrase Christ's Mass, a sacred service where believers honor Christ's life, sacrifice, and resurrection. During this Mass, Christians remember that Jesus died for humanity's sins and later rose from the grave, symbolizing eternal life and redemption. Yet over centuries, Christmas has transformed. What began as a deeply spiritual and solemn occasion gradually evolved into a festive season, celebrated not just by Christians, but by people of varying beliefs across the globe. For many, it has become less about its religious origins and more about shared traditions, family, and joy. Today, Christmas evokes images of twinkling lights, decorated trees, stockings hanging on fireplaces, and the warmth of family gatherings. Joyful music fills homes and streets, while the aroma of festive foods wafts through kitchens. In modern times, Christmas has also taken on a commercial aspect. It's impossible to miss the relentless marketing messages that dominate the month leading up to December 25th. Billboards, television commercials, and shop displays bombard us with images of idealized celebrations and gifts. The season has become a time of immense spending, as families brace themselves for shopping sprees to meet the demands of loved ones and keep up with societal expectations. The magic of Christmas has, in some ways, been overshadowed by consumerism, where advertisements push products as the key to happiness during the holidays. Despite this, its essence remains, a time for generosity, love, and connection. At the center of this season stands one iconic figure, Santa Claus. Inspired by a real-life figure from the 3rd century, Santa Claus is modeled after St. Nicholas, a man whose legacy of kindness and generosity continues to shape Christmas traditions today. Born in Patara, a city in what is now Turkey, Nicholas was a Christian bishop who dedicated his life to helping others, particularly the poor and less fortunate. Stories of his selflessness spread far and wide, earning him admiration as a compassionate saint. One tale recounts how Nicholas secretly gifted bags of gold to save 3 daughters from poverty, slipping the gifts into their stockings as they dried by the fire. It is these small yet profound acts of kindness that cemented his reputation as a generous benefactor. Over time, Nicholas's story gave birth to Santa Claus, a figure who embodies the joy of giving. He has become a global symbol of Christmas, a jolly, plump man with rosy cheeks, a twinkle in his eye, and a hearty laugh. Dressed in his iconic red suit trimmed with white fur, Santa travels the world in his sleigh pulled by reindeer, delivering gifts to children on Christmas Eve. Yet despite Santa's cheerful reputation, few are aware of his dark counterpart, a shadowy figure who punishes rather than rewards. This sinister creature has haunted European folklore for centuries, a terrifying presence during the holiday season. In stark contrast to Santa Claus, Krampus is no bearer of joy or goodwill. Instead, he emerges from the darkest corners of winter legends as a being whose sole purpose is to instill fear and mete out punishment. Where Santa is depicted as benevolent and kind, Krampus is monstrous and cruel. For centuries, the figure of Krampus has been whispered in Germany and the surrounding Alpine regions, his legend spreading from one small village to the next. Krampus is a creature deeply rooted in Germanic folklore, emerging during the cold and bleak midwinter, a season that historically symbolized hardship and survival. Long before electricity lit up homes and fireplaces brought warmth, winter was a time of darkness, isolation, and uncertainty. The harsh Alpine winters, with their snow-covered forests and freezing winds, were the perfect backdrop for tales of demonic figures lurking in the shadows. Krampus, whose origins predate Christianity, was a prominent figure in these stories. As Christianity spread across Europe, it absorbed and reinterpreted many pagan traditions. Krampus, once possibly a fertility god or a spirit tied to the natural cycles of the land, was demonized and turned into an agent of punishment. His role became clear: to accompany St. Nicholas during Christmas time, serving as a reminder that not all children deserved gifts and joy. While St. Nicholas brought treats and gifts to the good children, it was Krampus who dealt with the disobedient and the wicked. The folklore suggests that Krampus would follow St. Nicholas from house to house in Alpine villages. While the saint entered homes to reward well-behaved children with sweets and toys, Krampus lurked in the shadows, waiting to punish the naughty. The mere mention of his name struck fear into the hearts of children who knew they had misbehaved, for Krampus was no ordinary figure of discipline. The name Krampus itself originates from the old High German word Krampen, meaning claw or to seize, a fitting description for a creature whose very existence revolves around punishment and terror. His appearance aligns with the darkest depictions of evil, a monstrous horned demon with glowing red eyes, jagged teeth, and an unnaturally long tongue. Standing over 7 feet tall, Krampus's form is covered in thick, matted black hair, making him look more beast than man. His hands end in sharp claws capable of tearing flesh, and his feet are mismatched. One a cloven hoof like that of a goat, the other a bear's claw. On his back, Krampus carries a large sack or wicker basket, much like Santa Claus. But where Santa's sack holds gifts, Krampus's sack is reserved for his victims, the children he abducts and carries away. His tools of terror include rooten, bundles of birch twigs that he uses to beat misbehaving children. Sometimes he carries rusty chains and large tarnished bells, which jingle ominously as he moves. The symbolism of Krampus's tools is significant. The chains are thought to represent the binding of evil by Christianity, while the bells are believed to ward off demons and malevolent spirits. Despite these Christian interpretations, Krampus remains a creature rooted in older, pre-Christian traditions. His actions are cruel and remorseless, and his punishments are far harsher than a lump of coal in a stocking. For mildly naughty children, a beating with the birch twigs may be sufficient. But for those whose behavior is deemed unforgivable, Krampus's punishments escalate. Some legends describe Krampus kidnapping these children, stuffing them into his sack, and carrying them deep into the Black Forest. There, hidden away from the world, Krampus subjects them to further torment until they repent. For the truly wicked, there is no mercy. Krampus is said to either devour his victims or drag them straight to the fiery depths of hell. Such tales served as a terrifying warning to children, ensuring they behaved throughout the year. Beyond his role as a punisher, Krampus's supernatural abilities add another layer to his legend. He possesses immense strength, enabling him to tear off limbs or crush bones with ease. Some stories suggest he has the power to shapeshift, taking on a more human form when it suits his needs. Like Santa Claus, Krampus seems to know which children have been naughty or nice, appearing when least expected to mete out justice. His ability to appear and disappear at will only heightens the terror surrounding him, as does his rumored capacity to traverse between different realms or planes of existence. Over the centuries, Krampus's presence in Alpine culture became deeply ingrained, an annual reminder of the consequences of misbehavior. His legend stood as a stark contrast to the warmth and joy of St. Nicholas, creating a balance between reward and punishment. The figure of Krampus may have evolved and adapted over time, but his core role remained the same: a fearsome enforcer who ensured that children, and even adults, remained on the right path. Krampus's punishments were not limited to mere fright. They often carried a brutal and sadistic undertone that reflected the harsher realities of earlier times. Alpine folklore paints Krampus as a creature who relishes the act of tormenting his victims. For those children who had misbehaved throughout the year, the punishment began with the vicious lashing of rooten, the bundles of birch twigs Krampus always carried with him. These beatings were no light warnings, but painful enough to leave lasting bruises, both on the skin and in the minds of the children who experienced them. However, the birch twigs were only the beginning of Krampus's dark methods. For children who were particularly disobedient or unapologetic about their misdeeds, the legend claims that Krampus would abduct them entirely. His sack, an ominous tool much like Santa Claus's, was filled not with gifts, but with terrified children who cried and begged as Krampus carried them off. Some stories say he would drag these children to his lair, a dark and foreboding place said to be located deep within Germany's Black Forest. In this shadowy realm, far from the light of villages and family hearths, Krampus would inflict further punishments until the children repented for their wrongdoings. For some, the punishment might end there. Bruised, frightened, and forever changed, they might be allowed to return home to their families. But for the truly wicked, Krampus's mercy was non-existent. Folklore speaks of Krampus devouring these children, consuming them as a final punishment for their sins. Other tales suggest an even more chilling fate. The children would be dragged into the fiery depths of hell itself, a place where Krampus reigned as a servant of darkness. These terrifying legends served a clear purpose in the harsh, unforgiving environments of Alpine villages. Misbehavior would not be tolerated, and there were consequences for disobedience. Krampus's role as a punisher extended beyond children. Adults, particularly those who engaged in cruelty or wickedness, were also said to attract the wrath of the Christmas demon. In some versions of the folklore, Krampus sought out young women who were rebellious or flirtatious, echoing his connection to the lustful satyrs of Greek mythology. The satyrs, goat-like creatures of ancient Greece, were known for their wild and untamed nature, often depicted as pursuing women with relentless desire. Krampus, sharing their goat-like features and untamed appearance, embodied this darker aspect of human behavior. His presence was a reminder not just to children, but to all members of society that wickedness, cruelty, and disobedience would be punished. The supernatural powers of Krampus only deepened the fear surrounding him. Beyond his physical strength, which was said to be immense enough to tear limbs from bodies or snap bones like twigs, Krampus was believed to possess otherworldly abilities. Folklore suggests that Krampus could appear and disappear at will, vanishing into the shadows just as suddenly as he emerged. He was said to be capable of traveling between realms, moving between the human world and the depths of hell, where he dragged his victims. This ability to slip between planes made Krampus an even more formidable figure. There was no escaping him, no hiding from his judgment. In addition to his shape-shifting powers, Krampus was believed to share some of the same magical abilities as Santa Claus. Just as Santa could determine which children were naughty or nice, Krampus had an uncanny knowledge of human behavior. He knew who had sinned, who had misbehaved, and who deserved punishment. This omniscience added to his terrifying nature. It was impossible to deceive Krampus or hide one's misdeeds from him. Like Santa, Krampus also had the ability to traverse vast distances in a single night, moving from village to village as he carried out his grim task. The origins of Krampus are a topic of much debate, with scholars and folklorists offering various theories about his roots. One of the most compelling connections is to Hel, the Norse goddess of the underworld. In Norse mythology, Hel ruled over the dead in her realm, known as Helheim, a cold and shadowy place where the unworthy were sent after death. Hel herself was often depicted as a frightening figure, half living and half dead, embodying both beauty and decay. Krampus's association with death, punishment, and the underworld aligns closely with Hel's mythological role, leading some to believe that he is her son or a related spirit. Another possible origin for Krampus lies in the figure of Perchta, a goddess from Germanic pagan traditions. Perchta was a complex and dual-natured deity, known for both rewarding and punishing those who encountered her. During midwinter festivals, it was said that Perchta would visit homes, leaving small gifts for children who had been hard-working and obedient throughout the year. However, those who were lazy or disobedient faced a much darker fate. Perchta was said to slice open their bellies, remove their internal organs, and replace them with straw. This violent and terrifying punishment echoes the brutality of Krampus's methods, leading many to believe that he is a malevolent counterpart to Perchta. Some folklorists suggest that Krampus's origins predate Christianity entirely and are rooted in ancient pagan fertility rituals. In these early traditions, horned deities and spirits were worshipped as symbols of nature, fertility, and the cycles of life and death. The Celts, who inhabited much of Europe before the spread of Christianity, often depicted their gods with horns, associating them with strength, wilderness, and primal power. As Christianity spread throughout Europe, these pagan gods and spirits were demonized, their horns and animalistic features reinterpreted as signs of evil. Krampus, with his goat-like horns, cloven hooves, and wild appearance, may be a lingering remnant of these ancient beliefs. During the Middle Ages, when Christianity had taken firm hold in Europe, the Church sought to suppress any traditions or festivals that had ties to paganism. Krampus, as a figure associated with darkness and punishment, was viewed as a threat to Christian teachings. The Inquisition, which began in the 13th century, targeted those who continued to observe pagan rituals, and great efforts were made to stamp out beliefs in horned spirits and demons. Krampus, along with other creatures of folklore, was driven underground, kept alive only in whispered stories and secret traditions. Despite these efforts, Krampus never disappeared entirely. By the 19th century, he began to resurface in Alpine regions, particularly in Germany and Austria, where he became an integral part of Christmas celebrations once more. During this period, Krampus appeared on holiday greeting cards known as Krampuskarten. These cards, often featuring elaborate and grotesque illustrations, depicted Krampus in various scenes of torment and punishment. Some showed him dragging children away in chains, while others depicted him gleefully whipping them with birch twigs. The message was clear: misbehave, and Krampus would come for you. These cards often included the phrase Gruß vom Krampus, meaning greetings from Krampus, a chilling yet humorous reminder of the consequences of naughtiness. At the same time, the rise of the brothers Grimm and their collection of German folk tales helped fuel interest in figures like Krampus. Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm, who traveled throughout Germany collecting stories passed down through generations, preserved many elements of Germanic folklore that might have otherwise been forgotten. Their work sparked a renewed fascination with the dark and fantastical creatures of European mythology, bringing figures like Krampus back into the public consciousness. Krampus's role in Christmas celebrations grew alongside these developments. While Santa Claus rewarded good children with gifts, Krampus served as a necessary balance, a figure who ensured that the naughty received their due punishment. This duality of reward and punishment reflected the harsh realities of life in Alpine villages, where winters were long, resources were scarce, and survival often depended on discipline and hard work. Parents used the story of Krampus to instill obedience and fear in their children, warning them that the Christmas demon was always watching and ready to strike. During the night of December 5th, known as Krampusnacht or Krampus Night, the legend of Krampus comes to life in towns and villages across the Alpine regions of Europe. On this eerie evening, the streets transform into scenes of chaos and excitement as Krampus accompanies St. Nicholas on his journey from house to house. For centuries, families have prepared for Krampusnacht with a mix of dread and anticipation. Children who had been warned all year about the consequences of misbehaving would find themselves at the mercy of Krampus, while St. Nicholas distributed gifts to those deemed deserving. The division between punishment and reward plays out in a dramatic way during this ancient celebration, leaving an indelible mark on both children and adults alike. On Krampusnacht, men dressed as Krampus don elaborate and often handmade costumes, meticulously crafted to mimic the nightmarish creature of folklore. These costumes are works of art, typically made from real goat or sheep hides dyed black or brown. lending a wild and authentic appearance to the Krampus impersonators. The masks, a defining element of the costume, are carved from wood and feature grotesque faces with exaggerated features, bulging eyes, sharp fangs, and curling horns that add to their devilish aesthetic. To complete the transformation, the Krampus figures strap bells, rusty chains, and bundles of birch twigs, rooten, to their bodies. The jingle of bells and the clatter of chains create a terrifying cacophony that echoes through the narrow streets, signaling Krampus's arrival. The celebration often begins with a procession, as groups of Krampus figures march through the streets under the cover of darkness. Torches and lanterns light the way, casting flickering shadows that make the Krampus figures appear even more menacing. The costume men prowl through the crowds, deliberately seeking out children and young women to frighten. Their approach is far from subtle. They stomp, growl, and swing their birch twigs, often swatting at legs and backs to provoke screams and laughter. It is a theatrical and chaotic event, equal parts frightening and exhilarating, as participants revel in the ancient traditions that have been passed down for generations. In many households, the celebration becomes more intimate as Krampus and St. Nicholas make personal visits. Parents welcome the Krampus impersonators into their homes, where they act out the age-old ritual of judgment. St. Nicholas, with his regal and saintly demeanor, questions the children about their behavior over the past year, rewarding those who have been good with small treats and gifts. Meanwhile, Krampus looms in the background, his menacing presence serving as a warning to the naughty children. The Krampus figure might rattle his chains, stomp his feet, or even chase the children around the room, eliciting shrieks of both terror and delight. For parents, it is an opportunity to reinforce discipline, while for children, it is an unforgettable experience that cements the legend of Krampus in their minds. The festivities of Krampusnacht culminate in a communal gathering where villagers share food, drinks, and stories. The men who played Krampus are invited to partake in beer and schnapps, traditional offerings that symbolize hospitality and camaraderie. Despite the frightening and chaotic nature of the evening, Krampusnacht serves as a communal bonding experience, bringing families and neighbors together to celebrate their shared heritage. It is a night where the line between myth and reality blurs, and the ancient figure of Krampus comes alive once more. While Krampusnacht is a highlight of the Christmas season in Alpine regions, it is not the only event dedicated to the Christmas demon. The first week of December also marks the Krampuslauf, or Krampus Run, a festival that has grown in popularity over the years. Unlike the smaller, more intimate celebrations of Krampusnacht, the Krampuslauf is a large and theatrical event that draws participants and spectators from far and wide. Entire towns and cities are transformed into stages for this wild spectacle, with streets blocked off to make way for the procession of Krampus figures. The Krampuslauf is a unique blend of performance art, tradition, and revelry. Men dressed as Krampus gather in large groups, forming parades that snake through the streets as they unleash their terrifying personas on the crowds. The costumes are even more elaborate than those seen on Krampusnacht, with towering horns, matted fur, and intricately detailed masks that reflect the craftsmanship of local artisans. The Krampus figures carry an assortment of props, from birch twigs and sacks to flaming torches and whips. The sound of clanging bells and rattling chains fills the air, creating an atmosphere of tension and excitement. During the Krampuslauf, the Krampus impersonators interact with the spectators in dramatic and often mischievous ways. They chase down children, swat at onlookers with their birch twigs, and roar loudly to provoke fear and laughter. It is common for Krampus figures to single out specific individuals, particularly young women, who are playfully captured and paraded around before being released. While the event can be intimidating, there is an undeniable sense of joy and celebration that permeates the atmosphere. Families and friends gather to watch the spectacle, laughing and cheering as the Krampus figures perform their dark and theatrical rituals. The Krampuslauf has become a beloved tradition in many Alpine towns, but its appeal has spread far beyond its regional origins. In recent years, cities across Europe and even in the United States have begun hosting their own versions of the Krampus run, attracting enthusiasts who are eager to experience the thrill of the event. These modern celebrations often feature live music, food stalls, and markets selling Krampus-themed merchandise, creating a festive atmosphere that blends the old with the new. The popularity of the Krampuslauf highlights the enduring fascination with Krampus and his role as a counterbalance to the cheerful and commercialized figure of Santa Claus. Krampus is often portrayed as a supernatural force of punishment, a dark counterpart to the benevolent Santa Claus who ensures that the wicked and disobedient are held accountable for their actions. Krampus has also become a symbol of resistance against the commercialization of Christmas. In a season often dominated by consumerism and excess, the legend of Krampus serves as a reminder of the consequences of greed, selfishness, and misbehavior. His story challenges the sanitized and cheerful image of the modern Christmas season, offering a darker and more complex perspective on the holiday. For many, Krampus represents a return to the roots of Christmas, where the focus was on morality, community, and the balance between reward and punishment. Despite his terrifying nature, Krampus has also been embraced with a sense of humor and irony. In the Alpine regions where his legend remains strongest, Krampus-themed merchandise, greeting cards and decorations are popular during the holiday season. The grotesque and playful imagery of Krampus has become a cultural icon, celebrated in both traditional and modern contexts. In many ways, Krampus has transcended his role as a figure of fear and become a beloved symbol of the holiday season, reminding us that even in the darkest tales, there is room for laughter, tradition, and connection. The story of Krampus is a testament to the power of folklore and the enduring appeal of myth. For centuries, the legend of Krampus has been passed down through generations, evolving and adapting to reflect the values and beliefs of the times. From his roots in ancient pagan traditions to his resurgence in modern popular culture, Krampus continues to capture the imagination of people around the world. His presence during the holiday season serves as both a warning and a celebration, a reminder of the importance of kindness, generosity, and accountability in a world that often forgets the true meaning of Christmas. As we embrace the spirit of the holidays, let the legend of Krampus remind us that the season is about more than gifts and decorations. It is a time to reflect on our actions, to cherish the people we love, and to strive to be better versions of ourselves. Whether we view Krampus as a figure of fear or as a playful symbol of tradition, his story continues to resonate, reminding us that the balance between light and dark, reward and punishment, is what makes the holiday season so meaningful.